This is not a cabinet or cupboard, sideboard, whatever. It's a Hifi system. You see, there it is. You could use it as a cabinet because inside there is actually a little storage compartment to store your favorite exercise records, for example. In the other compartment is the record player. This device is not in use anymore and I dare not try it. Home audio has since become a bit smaller, while even sounding better. And it has reached its final format as a data stream receiver.
Welkom bij Inhoudsloos.
Before the merging to one form of audio playback, mini Hifi systems became quite popular, like this Kenwood SE7. Let's plug it in. Yes, it's a component system, each with its own power supply. The components are a receiver, we'll get to that later, a compact disc player, a cassette deck with unusual loading mechanism, and a Minidisc deck. All components have the exact same dimensions, so you can arrange them any way you please. Each component can be used solo, independent of the others. Regardless of what Generation Z and later may think of it, to me the design is quite timeless. Apart from the fact that only the receiver is still relevant. The included speakers were not as timeless, and that's why they're missing here. I still use the receiver, connected to my self-made Piggy speakers. In this folder from 1996 we can see the facelift version costing 1300 guilders, about 913 euros in 2021. For a decent extra 200 guilders you also got the cassette deck. It has had various design skins. The components interact with each other via interlink cables, used only for triggers. For sound, you'll need to connect a whole bunch of tulip cables. Oh well, you only have to do it once. There, done. No cable in sight. Here is a little demonstration of the interlink cables. Let's play a cassette. And now press play on the Minidisc. The receiver switches input and the cassette deck stops only when the Minidisc has started playing. And the same of course with the CD player. Well, if I had placed the CD, that is. Yeah, it has some problems anyway. Right, let's take a closer look at each device. The stereo integrated amplifier and tuner that I call receiver has a switch for Class A amplification, which is quite unique, especially in this small size. Class A means better sound but more power consumption. And with that, more heat. Which is why the manual says only use pure A at a low volume. The NB button stands for natural bass, and it beefs up the low and high frequencies. Below it we find an enter button for menu functions, the input selector, up and down buttons for tuning and menus, a button to choose between long wave or shortwave radio and a stereo mono for the radio. The black circle is the infrared remote sensor. Many things I say may sound very obvious, but perhaps not to Generation Z. Given that this is a 26-year-old device, it's remarkable how perfectly smooth the multifunctional volume knob is still working. The so-called AI volume knob changes in bigger steps when moving faster. Characters are shown with 15 segments, divided by dots, faking a matrix display. This old VFD display is difficult to see in normal light. It has had a lot of burning hours. When turning on, the display gets a bit brighter. It indicates that it mutes for a moment, which is done to prevent a pop on power on. Almost all space on the back is used up by connectors. You can pause the video when interested. The compact disc player. It has a drive chip, which is a complex way of saying that it has 24-bit digital to analog conversion. It's easy to press eject instead of play, because the buttons look so similar and are hard to read. I already told you it has some problems. Well, in fact, it's not working at all, but that's okay. The VFD display also has a fake matrix digits where the time has less dots. Below eject and play pause, we find repeat and stop, also a bit confusing. Most CD players also came with a program button, which is missing here, but it's on the remote. And then its unique feature, the space and time buttons. We'll get to that at the end of the video. Remarkably, the CD player also has an infrared sensor, even though it came paired with the receiver. As with almost all CD players, this one also had a digital optical output, and it has two system control connectors, one of which you link to the cassette deck, the only component without a display, but nice LEDs instead. It has a horizontal loading mechanism, just like a CD player. It's the only way to make it this compact. The eject button is a row lower than on the CD player, which is why I pressed reverse play a few times. I've digitized quite a lot of cassettes with this thing, but now that digitizing is completed, it's getting a bit rusty. You see, just works fine. Play and reverse play have a LED indicator which turns green when playing. As mentioned before, confusingly the eject button is now a row lower, next to the stop button. At the bottom we find fast forward and rewind, which auto stop at a silence when pressed while playing. More nicely fitted tiny LEDs we find above the power button for auto reverse looping and for Dolby B or C noise reduction. And there are more nice tiny LEDs. One for the automatic recording level function and two more for record and pause. Nothing special on the back, just the usual connections and a system control. And the last component, the Minidisc deck. Fully functional. It's the only component with a true matrix display. This too has the 24-bit digital to analog conversion they call drive. Or should I say DRIVE. Play, eject and stop are on the same place as the CD player, but the pause button is now separate, which undoubtedly has to do with the recording functionality. The skip buttons are also on the same place, as are the fast forward and rewind, which double function as a recording level. and then records an automatic CD recording they call OTE, another unnecessary complex abbreviation. This device too has its own infrared remote sensor, and in fact its own infrared remote, making the unit completely independent. Nothing special on the back except the optical input, ideal for CD recording. And this is the system remote, by the way. Mildly disappointing with an unclear layout. It can control all 4 devices. Every component has a different way of showing the off status. The receiver shows the time, the CD player a red icon on the VFD display, the Minidisc deck just says standby, and the cassette deck is the only unit with a nice standby LED. Quite chaotic overall. Alright, let's listen to this hi-fi system. That's not supposed to happen, but it's okay. Let's move to the CD player. Yes, I know there's no CD in it, but as demonstrated earlier, that doesn't make a difference. Never mind. It is time for the demonstration of the space and time buttons. Okay. I'm now going to press the space and time buttons simultaneously. I'm really curious. Oh, oh my God! Wait. Here's the plan. I'm going to play a little melody on the keyboard. And while playing, I press the space and time buttons on the CD player. Place the camera. And here we go.